Hello, humans, you highly evolved monkeys, you. First, let me say welcome, and especially welcome if you're trans like me, or you are neurodivergent like me, or just one of nature's little oddities. You're all welcome here, and so are the normal people. What is normal? Nobody knows. Anyway, we're all going to die. But before we do that, we're going to have some fun with this song. One of the great songs, Can't Help Falling in Love. Everybody knows it, do they not? And what I wanted to do, what I thought would be interesting, would be to hear the different approaches that different great artists have taken to this song. So we're going to start with the original. Now I'm not going to play the whole of any of these because, you know, copyright and there's a lot to get through. But I will put links to every single version down below, and you can follow them at your leisure and to your heart's content. Okay, so we're going to start with the original, the Elvis version. I mean, is it the original? There's a reason why it kind of isn't, and I'll explain that towards the end. But let's just go with it for now. Elvis as the original. Okay, 1961 from the film Blue Hawaii, I think. So let's just hear what it sounds like.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you.
So what have we got here? It's all about Elvis's voice. It always is about Elvis's voice. That lovely, rich baritone. So if you don't know about those music terminologies like baritone and soprano and everything, baritone is kind of one of the lower male voice ranges. And voices in this area, apart from being a little bit deep, tend to have quite a rich, round, chocolatey sound. And that's very much what Elvis's voice is like. The one thing I want you to notice is the time signature. What I mean by time signature, I just mean the way you would count along to it. And this is like I think they would call it a 6/8 feel maybe. And I'm pointing that out because it's quite interesting how different musicians take slightly different approaches to the time signature. But yeah, Elvis's rich, deep, chocolatey voice. You listen when he goes down to the low notes.
But I
See how fat and rich that is? Lovely. The thing that always strikes me as interesting about Elvis's voice is he's got this very fast vibrato. Vibrato is a little wobble you put on your voice when you're singing. So if you were singing what they call straight tone, it's just one, it's just smooth like that. But if you put vibrato on the end, hear that wobble? That's vibrato. But Elvis's vibrato is really fast. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I don't know how he does it. It's kind of a bleat rather than a vibrato, which sounds like a negative, but you can't say anything negative about Elvis's voice. So anything you do say about Elvis's voice must be a positive. It's just interesting to me how fast his vibrato is. Let's hear a little bit more.
I can't help falling in love with you. Shall I stay?
hear all those backing vocals, ooh, all the oohs in the backing vocals. That'll be, I assume that is the Jordan Airs, a little group of singers who he had on singing backing on loads of his stuff. They have a very distinct sound. More.
Would it be a sin if I can't help falling in love with you? Like a river flows surely to the sea, darling, so it goes. Some things are meant to be.
I'm going to stop there because not much else happens in the rest of the song. It's the second half is pretty much like the first half, which is interesting because usually they've got to do a load of stuff with the song so that it retains your interest. A change of key, bring in the orchestra, you know, just keep building it and building it so it gets more and more exciting and fulfilling as it goes along. But this, it just stays pretty much the same all the way through. It's interesting because how then did it become such a massive hit? And I guess it's just because it's just such a beautiful little tune and sung by Elvis with his beautiful big voice that you get halfway through and you think, I could listen to that all over again, which is exactly what you get to do when you hear the Elvis version. But let's move on from Elvis and let's see what somebody else did with it. I'm going to move to 21 Pilots, which is fucking brilliant. So let's just get that started and see what happens. So first thing to say here is now instead of the dun 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 ka dun dun ka timing, we've gone to waltz time. Boom ka boom ka dum ka dum ka, which is interesting.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you.
Okay, so about the first thing we notice is this is a very different voice to Elvis. So Tyler Joseph, I think his name is, that is a tenor, if ever I did hear one. So the tenor is the higher male voice. And he has such a beautiful sound. It's strange because, you know, he's not really doing much other than singing the song straight. He's not adding a lot of emotion to it kind of intentionally. He's not trying to sound emotional, and yet just the sound of his voice gets you right in the feels. Yeah, I love it. And also, so let's notice that he's in a car. This is a live recording. He's got his ukulele here, tenor ukulele, I guess, by the size of it. And notice how dead the sound is. It's not, what do I mean by dead? I mean not echoey. If you imagine if he was singing in a church, you know, that big whooshy echoey sound you get in a church, you don't get that here. You get a very dead sound inside the car with the soft seats and all the padding all round. Very interesting sound. And you really need to have a lovely voice to get away with singing in that environment. You know, singers use a lot of echo and reverb to make their voices sound pretty. And, you know, the reason you sound best singing in the shower is because the bathroom is a very echoey space. So, but no, he's going for it here, just in a completely dead space. Let's hear some more.
Shall I stay? Would it be a sin if I can't help falling in love with
So we got a completely different sound now. He's singing outside, and you can hear all the traffic in the background. Now here's an interesting thing from a production point of view. It's the production in this song that makes it so interesting to me. So that traffic noise is not recorded live in that space, I don't think. You can't see any traffic there. I think it's added later. This is fine. This is not a negative. This is the little tricks and things we do to create an atmosphere on a recording. But when he goes into the next section, notice how the sound of the traffic doesn't change at all, even though the location changes completely. So if it was an actual live traffic sound recorded in the same space as he is in right now, then you would expect that sound to change when the scene changes, but it doesn't. Watch.
Like a river flows surely to the sea.
And we have to say something about his head voice. That's the higher part of his voice. So beautiful.
Darling, so it goes. Some things were meant to be. Take my hand.
So you might have noticed here as well, strings coming into the background and a piano doing little plinky single notes. It's almost subliminal. A lot of people wouldn't even notice it's there, but it adds a richness and fatness to the sound. So he's doing what Elvis wasn't doing, is he's building the track to keep your interest. I mean, he doesn't really need to, because it's so interesting just watching him sing it in the different locations. But let's carry on.
Take my whole life too, 'cause I can't help falling in love with you. Like a river flows surely to the sea. Darling, so it goes.
The traffic's gone.
Some things were meant to be. Oh, take
And now we're over the loudspeakers.
hand, take my
Crowd in the background.
whole life too. 'Cause I can't help falling in love with you. 'Cause I
We're back to the car.
can't
Dead sound.
help falling in love with you.
Isn't that lovely? Yeah, so that's a very interesting one, especially from a production point of view. But who else has done this? What else can we find? I'm trying to remember who I had on next. Ah, yes, Diana Ankudinova, Russian singer. And this is her 2022 version, I believe. So there's two things here. Let's just play a little bit.
Wise men say only fools rush in.
So what's the first thing we notice is it's in a minor key. If you're not musically inclined yourself, the difference between a major key and a minor key, roughly speaking, is that a major key will tend to sound bright and cheerful, and a minor key will tend to sound a little bit more dark. Some would say sad, I would say dark. And what I really like about her doing it in a minor key is it lends a whole different meaning, for me at least, to the lyrics. In the major key of the other versions, the wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you. It's this kind of, it's just a lovely little love song, isn't it? It's a sweet little thing. But when she does it, it takes on this kind of sinister, I can't help falling in love with you. Well, maybe I've made that too sinister now, but do you know what I mean? It gives a darkness to it. It seems we've gone from what seems to be a song about a lovely relationship to a song about a relationship which might have a dark side to it. The other thing, of course, is the incredible voice of Diana. So Diana is a contralto. That's the lower female voice. But she's not just a contralto. It's not just that she sings in a lot of the time in a lower range. It's that it's not just that it's low. It's that it's so rich and fat and big. Her voice. What things that are interesting to me is that she doesn't sound like a man. When I listen to the tone of her voice, so much about it says male voice. The pitch, the fullness of the sound, and yet it doesn't sound like a man singing. And I don't know why that is. These are the things that fascinate trans people. Let's hear some more. She's gone up an octave here. This section is not in the original. This is an entirely new bit. So it's interesting. She's decided not to do the Like a River Flows section and has replaced it with this, which is a pure vocalese section, just using her voice, no words. It seems very post-Dimash to me. I really think Dimash has helped popularise this idea of just vocalising as a sort of an instrumental section in the middle of a song. I do it all the time because if I don't, then there'll be a big chunk of the song where I won't have anything to do. So let's just hear that section. She's about to go beast mode. She's about to go Macbeth. This is where her voice, this next section is where you really hear the extraordinary phenomenon that is Diana Ankudinova's voice. Brace yourselves. Amazing thing, isn't it? Her voice. Now, I was going to give a couple of honourable mentions here. These are songs I don't want to go into in too much depth, but, you know, UB40 did a reggae version, and they deserve points for that. It sounds a bit like this. I won't play any more of it because although I grew up on reggae. Reggae is my music in a way. Which sounds very weird for a slightly posh sounding white English person to say, but well, I'll explain it to you sometime. I don't like the production on this. Personally, yeah, it's not for me. I don't like that bass sound. It's too farty for me. I don't like it. But I definitely love the fact that they did a reggae version of it. Timing wise, of course they can't do it in 3/4. Reggae doesn't really happen in 3/4. Well, it can actually, but it generally doesn't. And so they're doing a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 timing. Unlike Elvis with his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 21 Pilots with their 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So that gets an honourable mention, and the other one that gets an honourable mention is Doris Day, and it's very much now Doris Day, one of the great voices of the 20th century, and I'm not going to go into it because it's a pretty straightforward Doris Day track. This is how she used to do it with the orchestra and everything, but just have a little bit of this scrumptious voice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're in 4s again, not 3s.
Wise men say only fools rush in, but I can't help falling in love with you.
It's honey, I tell you, it's honey. So yeah, I don't have much to say about that other than have a listen to it if you think that is a beautiful voice. And if you do think it's a beautiful voice, then you're right. So now we're going to get to another interesting version. So now we're going to have a look at Jacob Collier. Jacob Collier, if you've not come across him, is kind of the preeminent musical genius of his generation, of this century. You know, Quincy Jones, who's just sadly passed away, who worked with many of the greatest artists of the 20th century, people like Michael Jackson and Frank Sinatra, etc., has said of Jacob Collier, "I have never in my lifetime seen a talent like this." Just to give you some idea of what we're dealing with here. So when Jacob does a thing, it's usually quite unusual and very dense and complex, and it goes right over the head of us mere mortals. We can just sit and wonder, but it's still quite interesting to hear. I'm just going to play this little section towards the end where he starts to get really interesting, and he's playing this keyboard that was made for him, which replicates his voice across several notes so that he can accompany himself with a choir of his own voice. And this is all going to be improvised. He's just making this stuff up as he goes along because he can. Let's hear a bit.
Take my hand, take my life too, 'cause I
genius. It's the only word for it. And he seems like such a lovely person too. Us mortals can just sit and wonder at that boy. So that is probably the most unusual version we're going to hear today. But we've got one more. So you remember at the beginning of this I said that Elvis's version is the original, and yet it kind of isn't. And that is because it was the melody was borrowed from a classical piece called Plaisir d'amour, which I assume translates as the pleasure of love in French. And they took the melody and they made a pop song out of it. But this is the original, sung here in 1971 by Nana Mouskouri, a Greek singer who was a trained opera singer, but she sang more kind of, a lot of the stuff she sang was very easy listening, shall we say, very kind of quite cheesy in a good way. And this probably fits into that mould, but listen out for the melody from Can't Help Falling in Love. You know, it's not that closely, it's not that similar to it, to me, I think. If they hadn't said that we borrowed the melody from Plaisir d'amour, I probably wouldn't have even noticed it, but that's what people say. So it is worth hearing this, because this is much more complex than the say the Elvis version or these other versions. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more chords and things going on, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. But have a listen. I'll play a little bit. 1, 2, 3. We're in waltz time again. Isn't that lovely? So beautiful. So that is well worth listening to. There's a load of other bits in it as well that you should hear. Anyway, so that's all I've got to say about that. That lovely song and its many incarnations. And there's loads more versions. And of course there's loads of things that I was going to say which I'm now remembering. And I forgot to say them. And it's too late now. It's too late. So we'll just have to live with that tragedy. In the meantime, I don't know what I'll do next time for one of these videos. I'm sure I'll think of something. They're quite stressful to do, I find. I feel quite stressed. Do I look stressed? I feel stressed. So there's big gaps between these videos. But then I put it out and people say lovely things. So then I want to do it again. And in the meantime, be kind to somebody. Try and spread a little bit of loveliness in this dark, dying world, that it might live again, and that we might live in it and be happy humans. And free Palestine. Bye bye.